Tonight's city council meeting. Council members are attending this meeting remotely by video conference. Tonight's meeting is available to the public on Channel 8 and through live streaming on Broomfield's website. Public participation is encouraged by calling 855-695-3744 and pressing *3 to be placed in the queue for comment. Please note, if you would like to speak on more than one item on tonight's agenda, you will need to press *3 each time to be placed back in the queue for comment. I'm going to give we had a retreat on Saturday where council discussed the rules for speaking at city council meetings, and we're changing our rules slightly, so please pay attention. Public comment will now be limited for each item to 90 minutes, per item. The first 1 to 15 participants in the queue will have 3 minutes to speak, so we're incentivizing people to call in early. The next 16 to 25 participants in the queue have 2 minutes to speak, and if time remains, the next participants in the queue will have 1.5 minutes until we reach the 90-minute mark. Okay, once again, the number to call tonight is 855-695-3744 and press *3 to be placed in the queue. Screeners will ask callers for their first and last name, neighborhood, and the agenda item the caller would like to comment on. Please call several minutes before the agenda item and press *3 to ensure you are in the queue for comment. Public comment will also be taken during the public comment section, and this is for topics that are not on tonight's agenda using the process previously outlined. Again, the number is 855-695-3744, and don't forget to press *3 to be placed in the queue. The city council meeting is called to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Anderson.
Here.
Castriata.
Here.
Broom.
Here.
Hinkle. Jezierski. Law Evans.
Here.
Lim.
Here.
Limstead.
Here.
Schaff.
Here.
Tessier. Jezierski.
I can hear him trying. Oh, he's there. So count him as present and accounted for, and so we do have a quorum, and Sam can work out his issues with his sound. So let's rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. I pledge allegiance
to
the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. In an effort to keep order for tonight's meeting, I'm asking council to please utilize the video conferencing tools to raise their hand for comment or when making a motion or a second. I will call the first hand raised to state the motion and the second hand raised to make the second as appropriate. I ask members to limit their comments to 5 minutes. Abby will be assisting me with the timekeeping and will provide council members with a notification via video conferencing chat when 1 minute remains. Please ensure you are on mute when not speaking. If a council member needs to leave the meeting, please inform me before doing so. We will plan on a 10-minute break at approximately 8 p.m. We will begin with council's review of and approval of this evening's agenda. Council may add or remove items to the consent agenda, or council may revise the order of business for the meeting. Does any member of the council have any additional comments or questions regarding this evening's agenda? Noting none, we will leave the agenda as published. This evening, we have a proclamation supporting the 30 by 30 campaign to protect 30% of lands and oceans by 2030. This proclamation came from Councilmember Anderson's request for future action earlier this year. Will the clerk please read the proclamation?
Proclamation supporting the 30 by 30 campaign to protect 30% of lands and oceans by 2030. Whereas the 30 by 30 campaign is a worldwide science-based initiative to conserve at least 30% of the Earth's lands and oceans by the year 2030. Whereas this campaign was launched to address our climate crisis and reverse the destruction of our wildlife, waters, and natural places. Whereas science-based research has found that conserving and restoring lands and waters is necessary to preserving the Earth's biodiversity and ecosystems and mitigating the impacts of climate change. Whereas our natural places provide us with food supplies and clean drinking water, boost our economies, and offer us a wide range of health benefits. Whereas wilderness, wildlife refuges, national conservation lands, monuments, open space, and other conserved places provide access for hunting, fishing, hiking, biking, camping, and other outdoor recreation pursuits that provide the opportunity for contemplation, restoration, rejuvenation, and connection to the land. Whereas permanently conserved private lands, including working ranches and farms, protected open spaces, support carbon sequestration, preserve threatened wildlife, and help maintain our Colorado way of life. Whereas every person, regardless of race, background, or economic status, should have access to safe, clean, and close-to-home opportunities to get outside in nature. Whereas scientists are warning that protecting at least 30% of lands and water is the bare minimum we must achieve if we hope to stabilize the climate. And whereas we support efforts by Congress to champion this goal, such as the 30 by 30 resolution to save nature, led by Senators Tom Udall and Mike Bennett, and Representatives Deb Haaland, Joe Neguse, Ted Lieu, Ruben Gallego, and Ed Case. Now, therefore, Patrick Quinn, Mayor of the City and County of Broomfield, does hereby declare and proclaim City Council's support of the 30 by 30 initiative and science-based, locally led efforts to conserve and restore at least 30% of lands and water by 2030.
Thank you. We'll ask if there's any public comments on the on our proclamation that was just read. If so, press star 3, and we'll allow for public comments at this point in time. I'm not noting any. I'll ask if there's any council. I'll keep an eye on the board. Are there any council comments? Does any member of council want to comment? Now would be the time that you can. So I'm going to move on to general public comments. This is an opportunity for the public to comment on matters other than the items already listed on this evening's agenda. To replace the queue for comment, I'll repeat the phone number, 855-695-3744, and press star 3. Public comments will be limited to 3 minutes, and I'll keep an eye on the board, as will the Mayor Pro Tem, but I'm not noting any at this time. So we will move on. Council's community and event updates. Does any member of council have an update this evening? I'm not noting any. I do want to make a reminder that council and the community, that we're going to have an in-depth fourth quarter air quality monitoring report, which will be presented virtually this Thursday, February 11th at 3 p.m. Staff from Ajax Analytics, Colorado State University, and Boulder Air will provide presentations that will be available for questions. An executive summary will be presented by staff at the February 16th study session. If interested in participating, connection details will be provided in the weekly public notice found at broomfield.org/2340 or on the Broomfield calendar located at broomfield.org/calendar. So please participate on Thursday for an in-depth analysis of our air quality report. We will move on to council's consideration of the consent agenda. We will review this evening's consent agenda in 2 parts, as items 7F, 7G, 7H, and 7I are requests for executive sessions and require individual motions. we will follow the clerk's reading of consent and agenda items 7A through 7E. We will ask for public comments. Will the clerk please read agenda item 7A, 7B, 7C, 7D, and 7E by title?
7A, approval of minutes for regular meeting of January 26, 2021. 7B, resolution number 2021-23, authorizing and approving an agreement by and between the City and County of Broomfield and Arcadis US Inc. for the Mesa Booster Station final design. 7C, resolution number 2021-27, authorizing and approving an agreement by and between the City and County of Broomfield and Burns and McDonnell Inc. for the Interlochen Lift Station Site Application and Rehabilitation Project. 7D, resolution number 2021-25, authorizing a sole source procurement with Sturgeon Electric Company, Inc. for the conduit construction. And 7E, ordinance number 2148, amending certain sections of chapters 3-20 of the Broomfield Municipal Code regarding the procurement of goods and services by the City and County of Broomfield. First reading.
I want to note that on item 7E, there was a clerical error. So before we proceed with public comments, staff has requested a moment to address the error with council and propose an amended 7E. Ms. Ritchie?
Brenda?
Thank you. Thank you, and good evening, Mayor Quinn and Mayor Pro Tem and members of council, as well as distinguished staff. Brenda Ritchie, Chief Financial Officer. As mentioned, it was noted that the proposed ordinance this evening amending certain sections of the Broomfield Municipal Code regarding the procurement of goods and services contained a clerical error, specifically as it relates to the finance director's ability to approve sole source purchases in section 3-20-160 within paragraph A. The current version states that an amount of up to $500,000 may be approved by the director, which is noted in error. The actual amount being proposed and recommended is $100,000 to remain consistent with other sections of the ordinance. Staff requests approval based on the amended ordinance to reflect the corrected amount in section 3-20-160, paragraph A, to read that the finance director may approve sole source purchases in the amounts up to $100,000. And that concludes the staff update this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ritchie. So council at this point can keep this item 7E as amended on the consent agenda or remove it. Given the update from staff, does any member of council object to keeping item 7E as amended on the consent agenda? We will now proceed with public comments. Does any member of the public have comments on these agenda items? Please press star 3 and state your first and last name and neighborhood for the record. And I'm not noting anybody in the queue. So once again, we'll, as we normally do, we'll keep an eye on it and move on to council comments on agenda item 7A through 7E. Is there any council comments on item 7A through 7E? Is there a motion that the recommendations contained in the staff reports for agenda item 7A, 7B, 7C, and 7D be approved, and item 7E be approved as amended? Councilmember Castriota or Mayor Pro Tem?
So moved.
Councilmember Schaaf.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Anderson?
Yes.
Castriota?
Yes.
Broom? Broom?
Yes.
Jaworski?
Yes.
Law Evans?
Yes.
Lim?
Yes.
Lindstedt?
Yes.
Schaaf?
Yes.
It passes unanimously. So we will, next is council's request for four requests for executive sessions as outlined in items 7F 7G, 7H, and 7I. I don't think I've ever in the 7.5 years I've ever done 4 requests for executive session. So I'm just marveling at it. So we will. We're gonna vote on all 4, but first we'll have public comments on the 4 requests. If there's any member of the public that wants to have a comment on the 4 requests for executive sessions, press *3, and you'll have 3 minutes. I'm not noting anybody on it, so are there any council members' comments at all on the 4 requests for executive sessions? Okay, we're going to take each one of these separately. Request for an executive session requiring affirmative vote of 2/3 of the members present. Will the city and county attorney please read the recommended motion for item 7F?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That an executive session be held on February 16th, 2021 at 5 p.m. for the purpose of legal advice and direction to negotiators regarding Project Chestnut, a potential commercial development opportunity located in the area of Northeast Broomfield at the northeast corner of the intersection of Sheridan Parkway and Baseline Road, Colorado Highway 7, as permitted by 24-6-402 sub 4B and 4E of the Colorado Revised Statutes.
Mayor Pro Tem.
So moved. Oh, you wanted a motion, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You got it.
Is there a Councilmember Schaaf?
Second.
Okay, is there any discussion? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Castriata,
Yes.
Groom,
Yes.
Jezierski,
Yes.
Law Evans,
Yes.
Lynn,
Yes.
Lindstedt,
Yes.
Schaaf,
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
It passes unanimously, so we'll move on to 7G. Will the city and county attorney please read the recommended motion?
Yes. That an executive session be held on February 23rd, 2021 at 5 p.m. for legal advice and in order to determine positions relative to matters that may be subject to negotiations, develop strategy, and to direct negotiators, all relating to the development at Baseline as permitted by section 24-6-402 sub 4B and 4E of the Colorado Revised Statutes.
Is there a motion? Mayor Pro Tem.
So moved.
Councilmember Schaaf.
Second.
Any discussion? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Groom,
Yes.
Jezierski,
Yes.
Law Evans,
Yes.
Lynn,
Yes.
Lindstedt,
Yes.
Schaaf,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Castriata.
Yes.
It passes unanimously, so let's go to 7H. Will the city and county attorney please read the recommended motion?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. These next 2 requests are for an executive session at the end of tonight's meeting. That an executive session be held on February 9th, 2021, after the conclusion of council's regular meeting for the purpose of legal advice regarding extraction, oil and gas litigation as permitted by section 24-6-402 sub 4B of the Colorado Revised Statutes.
Is there a motion? Councilmember Lamb?
So moved.
Councilmember Castriata?
Second.
Will the clerk please call the roll?
Jezierski,
Yes.
Law Evans,
Yes.
Lynn,
Yes.
Lindstedt,
Yes.
Schaaf,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Castriata,
Yes.
Groom,
Yes.
It passes unanimously. So let's move on to item 7I. Will the city and county attorney please read the recommended motion?
That an executive session be held on February 9th, 2021, after the conclusion of council's regular meeting for the purpose of legal advice regarding Anthem Highlands building permit applications as permitted by section 24.6.402.4B of the Colorado Revised Statutes.
Okay. Councilmember Groom? I missed you last time. Do you want to make the motion?
Oh,
Motion?
sure. I was like, what would you like? So moved.
Councilmember Schaaf?
Second.
Will the clerk please call the roll?
Law Evans,
Yes.
Lim,
Yes.
Lindstedt,
Yes.
Schaaf,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Castriata,
Yes.
Groom,
Yes.
Jezierski.
Yes.
It passes unanimously. So we will move on. There is no business before the Board of Social Services this evening. This evening, we will have the COVID-19 update for the Board of Health. The meeting of the Board of Health is called to order. The clerk, please call the roll.
Anderson,
Here.
Castriata,
Here.
Groom,
Here.
Hinkle, Jezierski,
Here.
Law Evans,
Here.
Lim,
Here.
Lindstedt,
Here.
Schaaf,
Here.
Tessier.
A quorum is present. I'm going to make a comment. I think Ms. Monroe is getting more airtime than she really kind of wants tonight. So she's been online the whole time. So thank you, Ms. Monroe. We will the board members have a copy of the agenda memorandum, which staff will summarize.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Jason Volling, our Director of Public Health, will walk us through this presentation. And again, we do have Monday, prior to all of our council meetings, updates with COVID. And Jason will summarize the presentations yesterday. Jason?
Thanks, Ms. Hoffman, and good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, and council members. As Ms. Hoffman mentioned, we have a detailed presentation and also a recording of our presentation where we went into depth in these items from yesterday. A couple of key highlights I wanted to hit is, as of Saturday, the state issued a new public health order. Based on that, Broomfield is operating in level yellow. So pretty much means most of our businesses can operate at 50% capacity versus the 25% capacity. The one big thing to note with the new public health order is our back to business certified businesses can operate only at one level lower once our counties, at our county's designation, once 70% of Coloradoans 70 plus across the state are vaccinated. So just to repeat that, for the back to business programs, in order for them in Broomfield to be able to operate at a level blue, we have to reach that 70% of Coloradoans statewide that are 70 plus that are vaccinated. A couple other key updates is we're excited to see the Johnson & Johnson vaccine is scheduled for FDA review on February 26th. It then goes through the advisory committee process. And from there, we hope to start receiving vaccine supplies as a state shortly thereafter. That is a 1-dose vaccine. Additionally, yesterday, the state moved down further on their phases for vaccine distribution. And so those individuals 65 to 69 can register similar to those 70 plus through their healthcare provider. And that's all located on the state's COVID vaccine website. Additionally, pre through K and K through 12 educators, along with childcare workers, are eligible for vaccines. Those are primarily being arranged through the school districts and those healthcare systems. We're very excited to announce that over 11,600 doses have been administered to Broomfield residents. That includes from our health system partners and us as a Broomfield Public Health Agency and our pharmacy partners. And more importantly, and I would say most importantly, 62% of Broomfield 70+ residents have received at least one dose of the vaccine. And then lastly, our Back to Business program, we have 52 applications, 48 approved to businesses, and 3 approved for inspections. And with that, that concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
So we'll go to public comments. If there's anyone who would like to be heard, please press *3. State your first and last name and neighborhood for the record. I'm not noting any. We'll go to questions from the board or next. Are there any comments or questions from the board? Councilmember Schaaf.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Chair. So, Mr. Valling, question for you on vaccines. So, the last time we had a presentation from you, the advice was kind of just be patient if you're in that 70+ group. If somebody is still in that, if somebody is in that 70+ group and they still haven't gotten vaccinated, is the advice to them still just be patient, or you know, kind of when can they expect to, you know, when their friends that are 65 and older start getting vaccines? At what point should you know, they be concerned that they're being overlooked?
Yeah, thank you, Councilmember Schaaf. Again, as the governor has mentioned and the state health department, the priority is still definitely on vaccinating that 70+ population. So even though it has been opened up to the 65 to 69-year-olds and teachers and childcare workers, our main goal is to make sure we're getting those 70+. And the ultimate goal from the state is to vaccinate that 70+ by February 28th. Again, it seems like as a state we're moving now and that the supply is going up fairly quickly through that process. And so, yes, I would say if you are 70+ and have enrolled with a healthcare provider, you should be hearing from them hopefully in the next week or 2 weeks. And then we as a public health agency continue to do that gap filling role for those that may not have access to a healthcare provider.
Thank you.
Councilmember Groom.
Thank you, Chair. And Jason, or Mr. Valling, I'm just going to repeat what I know that we've already talked about, but for the public's purpose, I just want to express my disappointment in the state in regarding the goalposts being moved for our businesses here in Broomfield. So just to reiterate, what had happened is we had told our businesses that you fill out the paperwork and do the extra work, and you can operate in a level lower than our county. And then the state came back and said, oh, well, you can do that once the entire state is at 70% for all seniors. And so now those businesses are stuck at the county level until the state gets to 70% for seniors. And I think that's really unfair to our businesses. And I hope that I think, Jason, you were estimating by the end of February. Is that what? So we're hoping by the end of February that the state will reach that 70%. I want to make sure that Broomfield Council has a discussion. If at the end of February the state's not at that 70%, of how much we want to push back at the state. I know I would really like to push back at the state. That's definitely not guidance to you. But I want to make sure that we have a consolidated consensus of what kind of what kind of feedback we'd like to give the state, because I think that was quite unfair to do to the businesses that put all the effort forward. People are living off their 401ks at 40 cents on the dollar. They're really hurting, and they're jumping through loops to keep their businesses afloat. So I'm really disappointed at the state, and I want to just emphasize that was a state decision and had nothing to do with Broomfield. So I feel for our businesses, and let's all keep supporting them as much as we can. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions from the board? Mayor Pro Tem and Board Member Castriotto.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Balling, I wasn't able to attend the first part of Monday's meeting, but I did listen to some of it, and I just wanted to verify, is it true that we are now at 62% of vaccinations for our 70+ population? Wow.
Yes, that's correct, Mayor Pro Tem. And
that's phenomenal.
It is. We're actually leading the Denver metro region in vaccinating our 70+ population.
I just want to commend you all and your staff for getting that done so quickly, and I'm very pleased with that number. So thank you.
Thank you.
So here hopes that the momentum continues for those that are 65 or older.
Yeah.
And the teachers.
And
I'll
the
point out
teachers. Yeah.
and the teachers. So any other comments from the board? There being no further business before the Board of Health, the meeting is adjourned. There is no business before the Broomfield Housing Authority this evening. Our first item under council business this evening is the public hearing and council's consideration of proposed resolution number 2021-28, approving the final plat, replat to adjust lot lines for townhome product to be offered within the North Park Filing 6 development area. I will declare the public hearing open. We will follow the city standard public hearing procedures. First, staff will present a summary of the proposal. Next, we will have the applicant's presentation, if applicable. Then we will ask for public comments and final comments from the applicant. And finally, questions and comments from the city council. Council has a copy of the agenda memorandum, which staff will summarize.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Anna Bertonzetti, Director of Planning, will walk us through this item. Anna?
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor, members of Council. If we could have the next slide, please. The applicant is requesting consideration this evening for a final plat to adjust lot lines and add some utility easements within the North Park Filing Number 6 development area. We sometimes call this the West Sheridan neighborhood or the West Village neighborhood. The area is located west of Sheridan and south of Colorado 7, and it is immediately east of the community ditch. The proposed replat impacts about 130 of the existing lots and 18 existing tracts within the subdivision. Internal lot lines are being adjusted on 50 of those lots by about 5 to 7 feet on average to accommodate a recently approved Thrive Townhome product that will be provided within this subdivision. Utility easements are being added to some of the lots and some of the tracts as well. Many of the lots and tracts included with the replat are actually unchanged from the original, but are included because of continuity requirements with replatting this area. So what you're seeing on your screen, the blue colored lots reflect those lots that are having lot line adjustments, and the green colored lots have an additional 2.5 foot easement or are incorporated for continuity purposes. Tracks are not illustrated here, but they are located between the various groups of homes. There are no changes to the previously approved site development plan, and there are no changes to the recently approved amendments to the site development plans. In addition, there's no changes to the number of lots within this subdivision. Next slide, please. The land use designation for this site is mixed use commercial, and the approved subdivision is consistent with this designation. Next slide, please. Staff has not identified any key issues with this proposal. A neighborhood meeting was held and public notification requirements have been met for this project. At the November 23rd, 2020 meeting, the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval of this proposed replat as presented. And that concludes staff's presentation. The applicant's team is also available this evening if there are questions, but they do not have a formal presentation.
Yeah, and I think that's out of appreciation for council's time, and I appreciate that. So I'll repeat, the applicant is available for questions and following public comment. So let's go ahead and proceed with public comments. If there's anyone who'd like to be heard, please press *3, state your first and last name and neighborhood for the record. And I'm not noting any public comment tonight. So we will move on to questions from city council members. Are there any questions from city council members? Please raise your hand if you have questions. So there being no further comments, the public hearing before the city council is closed. Next is council's consideration of proposed resolution number 2021-28. Will the clerk please read proposed resolution number 2021-28 by title?
Resolution number 2021-28, approving the North Park filing number 6, replat B, final plat.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that resolution number 2021-28 be adopted.
Councilmember Groom. Councilmember Groom.
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Lim,
Yes.
Lindstedt,
Yes.
Schaaf,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Castriata,
Yes.
Broom,
Yes.
Jezierski,
Yes.
Law Evans.
Yes.
It passes unanimously. Thank you, gentlemen, for being on tonight. But you have your resolution has passed. So thank you very much. And so now we'll move on to something I think council is thrilled about. There are three positions that reports into council: the city manager, the city attorney, and the judge. And we held a, if this is my script or not, I'm going to say that we held a fairly lengthy process, which included public input and interviews. And I'm pleased to announce that we're going to resolution number 2021-30. Once approved, we'll be appointing Amy Bachman as Broomfield's presiding judge. So this is our first item: is council consideration of proposed resolution. Council has a copy of the agenda memorandum, which I'll ask staff to summarize.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, everyone. We are excited to present the contract this evening for Judge Bachman's appointment as presiding municipal judge following council's approval of her nomination at a previous meeting. The key employment provisions in the contract, which will have Judge Bachman start working for the city on March 16th. She'll be paid an annual salary of $103,833.60. She'll be credited with 80 hours of annual leave and receive benefits comparable to other full-time employees as far as life, health, and accident benefits, and leave benefits similar to other part-time benefited employees. The presiding municipal judge works 24 hours a week for the city and county of Broomfield. And then her contract also provides, as consistent with charter, that she may only be removed for cause, which is important for the independence of the judiciary in the municipal court. Amy Collins from Human Resources is also available to answer any questions council might have about the process or the contract.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Rogers. We'll go to public comments. If there's anyone who would like to be heard, please press *3, state your name, your first and last name and neighborhood for the record, and you'll be given 3 minutes. I'm not noting anyone. I'll go to questions or comments from city council members are next. Are there any comments or questions from city council? So, Councilmember Schaaf.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to welcome Judge Bachman to Broomfield. Thank you for accepting the position, and we look forward to working with you more in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's let's make it official then by going to council's consideration of proposed resolution number 2021-30. Will the clerk please read proposed resolution number 2021-30 by title?
Resolution 2021-30, appointing Amy E. Bachman as the presiding municipal judge for the city and county of Broomfield, and approving an employment agreement by and between the city and county of Broomfield and Judge Bachman, and issuing an oath to Judge Bachman.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that resolution number 2021-30 be adopted.
Councilmember Groom.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Lindstedt,
Yes.
Schaaf,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Castriata,
Yes.
Broom,
Yes.
Jaworski,
Yes.
Law Evans,
Yes.
Lim.
Yes.
Well, now it's official, Ms. Bachman. Well, I guess I'm going to give you, it's not real official until we swear you in. And so we're going to go ahead and do the swearing in, which is, which will be interesting on the, on Zoom, but we're going to do that. You have your hand raised. Thank you very much. And so,
I do.
so I'll state the oath and then you can repeat it. I state your name. Do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and of the state of Colorado.
I, Amy E. Bachman, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the state of Colorado,
And the charter and ordinances of the city and county of Broomfield.
and the charter and ordinances of the city and county of Broomfield,
And will faithfully perform the duties of my office as presiding municipal court judge.
and will faithfully perform the duties of my office as presiding municipal court judge
Upon which I will enter on March 16th, 2021.
upon which I will enter on March 16th, 2021.
Okay, now a formal, you are now well, I guess on March 16th you will be, but nothing stands in the way of you being the judge on March 16th. Everything's been approved. Would you like to make any comments, Judge Bachman?
I just want to very quickly thank Mayor Pro Tem, members of City Council, City Manager, and quite frankly, all the citizens of the City and County of Broomfield for this opportunity. I am so excited to be your new municipal court judge. So thank you all very, very much.
And we're delighted as well. And I do want to make a comment. I appreciate everybody who applied. The quality of candidates, and then we interviewed 4 our candidates, and then we had 2 at a citizens forum. The quality of candidates was somewhat overwhelming, and so it's just good to know that that we had good people participate, and we're going to have a good judge. We all like Judge Davis. I do want to make a comment that that we're not going to take time to thank Judge Davis. He's going to wait until a future council meeting. I don't think the details have been worked out yet, but we'll invite Judge Davis so we can thank him for his years of services. I will point out that I was in the council way back when, or mayor, when he was named judge several years ago. So we'll look forward to thanking Judge Davis and look forward to seeing the partnership that we're going to form with you, Judge Bachman, and do some new things with the court. I'm excited. We're all excited about it. I have a lot of nodding heads here. So thank you, Judge Bachman, and we will move on to, naming the judge is pretty cool. This next one's kind of cool too. So next is council's consideration of proposed resolution number 2021-21, naming the Midway pedestrian and bicycle bridge as Sheps Crossing. Oh, excuse me. I'm kind of excited about this one. And there's a picture of Chef behind me. So, before the staff presentation, I want to take a moment and share some history about Shep. In 1950, when a stray dog wandered into the construction site of the Boulder Denver Turnpike toll booth, the pup quickly became a beloved presence. Workers adopted the dog and named him Shep. He spent his years as a toll booth on US 36, just under Wadsworth, greeting travelers and eagerly accepting treats and toys from his admirer. The Colorado Department of Transportation made him their unofficial mascot. When Shep died in 1964, highway maintenance workers buried his remains next to the road. Someone began tending to and decorating his grave for holidays. However, due to construction, Shep's final resting place was relocated to Zangsburg Park, next to the Broomfield Depot Museum in 2009. Local dogs and their humans still frequent the site to pay their respects. I do want to share that I pulled this out today. There's it's hard to do on with the background. There's a children's book on Shep that I bought it by Charlotte and Havey that I bought at Broomfield Days a couple of years ago. I understand that it's available to be purchased at the Broomfield Depot Museum, and that is available both in English and Spanish. And so with all that said, we will now continue. And I'll make a personal comment, and this may be true with other people. My kids all, including my daughter who let's just say in her 40s, have gone to Broomfield schools, and Shep is someone you learn about very early on in the game. And it is just it's a delightful story. And St. William, who went to school here the whole way, he's nodding his head. So I just think this is really cool that the OSTAC wanted to do this, but I'll go ahead and go to staff to summarize the agenda memorandum.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Kristen Pritz, our Director of Trails and Open Space, will walk us through this presentation. Pritz.
Thank you, Mayor Quinn. That was a beautiful introduction and story about Shep. Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and council members. Next slide, please. This shows you the location of the proposed bridge between Midway and Industrial Lane, and it crosses the BNSF railroad tracks. And this was a real barrier to many of our residents who wanted to get over to the US 36 Bikeway, Interlochen, in our mall. Next slide, please. The name proposed is Shep's Crossing, as you know, and the name was thought of by Tara Linehan on OSTAC, and Michael McLean also prepared the application for review. It meets our Broomfield guidelines for naming public facilities. We all know Shep is our famous stray dog, and his name will be on the bridge with an interpretive sign too. Other references to Shep include Shep's Field Park that's over in the Ariston neighborhood, just off Shep's Way. And as the mayor said, his grave is kept safe and sound at the Depot Museum and Zangsburg Park. And on December 3rd, 2020, OSTAC unanimously recommended approval of this name. Next slide, please. And this resolution would officially name the new Midway Bridge as Shep's Crossing. This is a picture of Shep greeting one of the motorists on US 36 with the toll booth operator. And it's just a really treasured story for Broomfield. And in this article that the mayor mentioned, Shep was remembered as part shepherd, but mostly affection. And I think that really describes this wonderful dog. Thank you.
So we will we'll proceed with public comments. If there's anyone who would like to be heard, please press *3. Give us your first and last name and neighborhood. I'm not noting anybody in the queue, and so we'll move to, are there any comments or questions from City Council? Councilmember Law Evans.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I sit on OSTAC, and I'm so appreciative of their interest and willingness to name this this bridge that we've been wanting for so long for a good dog, a really good dog. And when I was very little, up until I was about 5 years old, my family actually lived very close to the turnpike on what is now Industrial Lane. And I have a very, very early but dim memory of Shep going through. The toll booths were right underneath the Wadsworth Bridge, as you mentioned, and kind of in the shade there. And I just have this memory of this old, sweet dog. We went up one day to not just to pay toll, but we had some other business with the toll people. And I just remember thinking how hard that dog's tail was thumping on the ground. And when I walked up to pet it, because the Shep was real old by then. So there's always room, I think, in the world for talking about another good dog, and in this case, a good Broomfield dog. So I'm thrilled that OSTAC had this idea. Tara and Michael, thank you so much for bringing this forward, and I really look forward to crossing Shep's Crossing Bridge often. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem.
I agree, Councilmember La Evans. I'm so grateful for Tara and Michael coming up with this wonderful idea for this community connector. And the story is new to me, but it really touched my heart because it really speaks to the kind of community that we live in. And I'm just so grateful we're able to put this just cherry on top of the sundae for this project that's been so long-term coming. I'm a little emotional, but thank you, Ms. Prince.
Councilmember Schaaf.
Thank you, Mayor. So my kids are so excited. They were so excited to see this bridge get built because this meant they could get closer to the trains when they ran by. I even pulled them in here because they're now excited that it's going to be named after Shep. They love Shep. They go to the Depot Museum and they check him out. But this is also a big day. Oh, this is also a big day for, dogs everywhere. Broomfield's most famous dog and all the other dogs, they're cheering him on. So this is awesome. Thank you to OSTAC for your work on this.
Councilmember Lindstedt.
Thank you, Mayor. I think any parent with children in Broomfield or anybody who grew up in Broomfield has fond memories of learning about Shep. And it's a really beautiful bridge, and it's a really, really appropriate name. When I take my dog Pax on a walk and we cross that bridge, it'll be really nice to think back on those memories in elementary school when you learn all about Shep. So I think it's a totally appropriate name, and I'm grateful to the folks that came up with it, and I was so happy to see it on the agenda tonight. Thanks, Mayor.
Yeah, saying no other comments, same here. And I look forward to, I crossed that bridge a couple times, last year, and I'm going to try to do the MS 150 this year, which is a one-day ride. And so I plan on crossing that bridge a few times, and it'll just make you smile because of Shep. So thank you. So we'll go to council's consideration of proposed resolution number 2021-21. Will the clerk please read proposed resolution number 2021-21 by title?
Resolution number 2021-21, naming the Midway Pedestrian and Bicycle Bridge as Shep's Crossing.
So I think everybody's being nice here. Councilmember Lindstedt, you want to make the motion?
Oh, sure, Mayor. I can absolutely do that. Here, 1 second.
Well, just because you grew up with it.
I did grow up with it here. Hold on.
So did probably Councilmember Groom.
I
We'll
moved
give her
that
the second.
number 2021-21 be adopted.
Okay, Councilmember Groom. Councilmember Groom.
Second.
Okay. Is there any discussion? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Schaaf,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Castriata,
Yes.
Broom,
Yes.
Kuczynski, Jaworski,
Stan?
Yes.
He said, yes.
Law Evans,
Yes.
Lim,
Yes.
Lindstedt.
Yes.
It passes unanimously, and once again, thank OSTEC, and that was just plain fun. So we will move on to the city and the county attorney's report is next. Ms. Rogers, do you have a report?
No report.
Okay. City and county manager report is next. Ms. Hoffman, do you have a report?
I do not, thank you.
Okay, so we'll, so now we're gonna move on to well, I'll go ahead and say, George Cicero used to say, when the legislature's in session, nobody's safe, and they're kind of sort of in session. And so this evening, staff will provide a brief 2021 legislative update and the proposed 2021 principles and policy statements for council's review. Council has a copy of the agenda memorandum, which staff will summarize.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Danae Brouillard, acting city county clerk, but soon to be up in the CMO full-time, will walk us through this legislative update and also get feedback from council on the legislative principles and sign off on policy statements. Danae?
Yeah, good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and council members. Thank you for this opportunity to provide an update. Danae Brouillard with the clerk's office and city manager's office. We wanted to take a quick moment and update everybody on the 2021 legislative session and then propose principles and policy statements. In the past, staff in partnership with regional lobbyist organizations have tracked, analyzed, and provided updates to council during the legislative update portion of the agenda. In 2020, due to COVID, the speed in which things moved through the 2020 regular session and the 2020 special session were unprecedented. As you all know, they moved very fast, and trying to keep up with it made us realize that maybe we should relook at our approach. To keep council informed on Broomfield related bills, staff started adding legislative updates to the CMO weekly update, which we've continued to do with chatter about bills that are proposed for 2021. And we would provide one-off emails as needed. We found that this approach addressed the timing issue and the cadence of when a bill was reviewed at the state legislature versus council's meeting dates, which, as you all know, don't always align. In the past, we would have waited until the regular council meeting to provide the update. Moving forward, we are recommending that council take the formal action on the front end by passing the proposed policy statements, which align with the external organization policy statements, as well as council priorities and local authority. We would then continue with the process that we did in 2020, where we would update council in the CMO weekly update or do a one-off email when needed. But what it would do is allow the subject matter experts on staff tracking this legislation the ability to identify, update council, and then take an approach, whether it's opposition or support for a bill when needed in a timely fashion, that the voice could be heard before it moved to committee or to committee of the whole or died before we could even get to it. So tonight in front of you, as you can see in attachment 1, we've outlined different policy statements. These were after a thorough review of the different committees of which council serves on and has approved to be members of, and tried to make it an alignment where they all align with what the different boards are saying and what the priorities of council are. And so tonight we'd like to see council's feedback on this and hopefully have an action where the policy statements are adopted so that staff knows when they can move forward on specific legislation and provide an update. And before concluding the staff report, one thing I just want to mention for numbers, when we're talking about tracking and looking at legislation, in 2019, for example, 598 bills were introduced. In 2018, 721 bills were introduced. As you all know, not all of those move through the process. And when we're talking about this policy statement, Broomfield would probably track 10 to 15. That's what we've done historically. So we're not looking at taking on all of legislation, but just the specific ones that align with council priorities that would have an impact on Broomfield, and then working with council on those updates before taking the actual formal action. But this would give us the ability to do that without a formal meeting and a formal action at that time. And with that, that concludes the staff report.
Okay, we'll go to public comments. If there's anyone who'd like to be heard on our policy agenda, statements of principles and policies, please press *3 and state your first and last name and neighborhood for the record. I'm not noting any, so let's go to questions from the City Council are next. Are there any comments or questions from City Council? Councilmember Lim.
I appreciate that we'll have the legislative matrix access to follow along. That'll be helpful. Thank you. I was wondering, the section on equity is very, very general without, you know, any specifics. I'm wondering what you're anticipating seeing. Aren't there any bills that are in the works in that area? And what should we expect to see there that's kind of left unspecified on that memo?
Councilmember Lim, oh, thank you for that question. I think that there's, in many lenses, there's many proposed bills that this could fit. For example, on climate change is one of the hot topics, in transportation, for example, which then touches that equity matrix and accessibility. So I think right in the impact, the secondary impact of these bills that are viewed as transportation or viewed as climate change, there is the equity, diversity, accessibility portion to those. And then I will say some of the other bills that I have not seen any draft language, but based on the 2020 session around the social justice system. And so as of now, I haven't seen any draft language, but I would anticipate that there will be language within that category as well.
Okay, thanks. There was a specific point in oil and gas that I had in mind. So one thing that we're looking for in the state level that I'm hoping to see somebody bring forward is, this is the way I would say word it, we support statewide measures to hold operators financially accountable for all the impacts of their operations. And in the list that you had for oil and gas there, I didn't see anything geared towards that financial accountability. And we've certainly been talking about that at the local level and would appreciate if the state brings something forward with that. Okay.
Councilmember Lim, can you repeat that language for me?
Sure. Supports statewide measures to hold operators financially accountable for all impacts of their operations.
Thank you.
Okay, and that's all I had. Thank you.
Councilmember Schaaf.
Thank you, Mayor. So I appreciate staff putting this together. I think that this, continues yet another year of us moving this down the road and improving this system for how we're handling the legislative session. So kudos to all the staff that has been working on this. One thing that I did notice, and I guess I honed in a little bit more on transportation, maybe some of the other areas, just because that is an area in which I'm working on multiple boards and commissions right now. But one piece was the kind of focus on multimodal transportation. Regarding CCAT's position on this, they are lobbying for 30% multimodal. And I think that, especially where Broomfield is situated, multimodal is such an important thing for us. And I think that we should strive to put more of a percentage out there, such as what CCAT has with a minimum of 30% based upon the Impact 64 agreement. It just puts a, that not only do we prioritize this for transportation, but we see that a significant amount of multimodal transportation in Broomfield and in our region is for the success, both economically as well as access for people to transportation options. So I would like us to move a little bit further and put some type of percentage on there, such as what CCAT did with a minimum of 30%. So just want to put that out there. Thanks.
Councilmember Anderson.
Thank you. I do not have any additional comments on it, but I just want to say that I very much appreciate the work that's gone into creating this list of priorities. And I do support the addition of the financial considerations for oil and gas. And my only question is, would the plan be to then update this in the beginning of going into 2022 for the 2022 council priorities? Like, was that the plan? Thank you.
Okay.
Anderson, that's a great question. The way your rules and procedures are written is we're to bring these before you each year before the legislative session. So that would be the plan, to bring an update so that it does align and adjust with new priorities of the council.
Okay, thank you.
And new council. Okay, so Ms. Rogers, going back to we talked about Robert's Rules of Order. It seems like there's a couple amendments that are being recommended here to what was proposed. And so the proper procedure would be to go ahead and have somebody make the motion that we have in front of us, and then entertain amendments. I think she's saying yes.
Sorry, say it one more time.
Yes, and to have the council member proposing the amendments to be very clear about the language so that staff can record it accurately.
Okay, so that makes sense. So you know, and for the public, we spent a fair amount of time Saturday afternoon talking about Robert's Rules of Orders, and are going to be adjusting more towards Robert Rules and Orders as let's say it this way, as the months go on. So is there a motion? Councilmember Lamb?
I move to amend. I move to.
I think we put the proposal down first.
First, okay.
Take
Well,
the motion
nobody
and then I'll
was
recognize
moving. Okay.
Okay. So are you moving for that, or are you?
Nancy, you want to clarify that?
Yeah, if Councilmember Lim can go ahead and do that. She started to do that language. I move to amend the policy statement as follows. And then she can, a bunch of us are taking notes here. We'll take notes on her amendment. There's a request for a second on that amendment. And then council can discuss that amendment and decide to vote it up or down, and then we can move on to the next one.
Okay, but we don't need to have a motion and a second first?
For
the before the 2020 be adopted. Don't we have to have that first?
Yes, I apologize, Mayor, that we do not have a main motion yet. We do need a main motion to introduce the policy statement this evening.
And that's what I was trying to, so I want to get the main motion out there, and, you know, public, please, you know, be generous to us. So I want to get the main motion out there, and I, you know, and so I'll go ahead and have the Mayor Pro Tem.
All right, thank you, Mayor. I move that the 2021 Legislative Principles and Policy Statement be adopted.
Is there a second? Councilmember Schaaf.
Second.
Okay, now I'm not exactly sure. I'm going to go ahead and recognize Councilmember Lim for amendment.
I move to amend the 2021 legislative update and council review of proposed legislative principles to add to the section on oil and gas that Broomfield supports statewide measures to hold operators financially accountable for all impacts of their operations.
That seems specific enough. Is there a second to the request for amendment, Councilmember Anderson?
Yes, I second Councilmember Lim's amendment.
Okay, we're now going to have a discussion on the amendment, which is to add the oil and gas language. We're not talking about the original. We're talking, we're talking about a discussion on that. Councilmember Law Evans.
So this may seem a minor point, and but as I listened to Councilmember Lim read her suggested language once again, would it be appropriate and to put in there, hold operators accountable for the negative impacts? Because I'm just wondering if, well, I guess this isn't an ordinance or anything or a resolution, but I'm just wondering if there's a positive impact, or do we support, I don't know. I don't know exactly where I'm going with this, but do you want to include a negative impacts in that statement, I guess is the question. I support this either way. It was just a thought.
Yeah, I think this is a statement of principle, and I think it's implied that it's negative. We will unless Councilmember Lim wants to adjust the language.
No, I thought that was implied in the statement.
Okay, so are there any other questions or comments on the amendment? So let's, I will call the roll for the amendment to add the oil and gas language as detailed by Councilmember Lim. Roll call.
Mr. Mayor, as a suggestion for time, I think on amendments, if the body agrees, they can do a consent vote, which means you ask for any objections. And if there's no objection, then the amendment passes. If there is objection, then we can go into a roll call vote.
Okay. We will then, are there any objections to the amendment? If there's any objections to the amendment, you speak or you can raise your hand. And I'll wait 5 seconds or so. So we'll go ahead and that amendment has been approved. So the resolution is now has had the oil and gas statement applied to it. Is there any other discussion or amendments? Councilmember Schaaf.
Thank you, Mayor. I would move to amend that we add a bullet point under transportation with the language of dedicate a significant portion of new funding to multimodal purposes at a minimum of 30% based on the MPAC 64 agreement.
Councilmember Lindstedt.
Second.
Yeah, is there any discussion on the amendment? Councilmember Schaaf, I have a question on that. Going back to the discussion that was brought up by Mayor Weaver last week. Have we covered if there are new revenues? Should we have should it be a separate amendment? I can't make an amendment. The discussion also about whether if there's going to be new revenues brought in that the old HUT into HUTF that the old rules should apply. That the new rules can or should apply.
I think it's a great point, Mayor, but I wouldn't get into that much detail on the policy statement. I think that's more of kind of something to figure out as we go along. This is much more of kind of an umbrella philosophy of looking to ensure that the revenues that come out that there is a significant portion of that's spent on multimodal.
Okay, I'll accept it. I just thought I would ask you the question since it came up. So there is a amendment on transportation, heavy multimodal. Ms. Rogers.
Thank you, Mayor. Could we have Councilmember Schaaf repeat that amendment for staff?
Okay.
I'd be delighted to. So add a bullet point to dedicate a significant portion of new funding to multimodal purposes at a minimum of 30% based on MPAC 64 agreement.
Do you have it? Okay. So then I will.
Mr. Mayor, this is Councilmember Law Evans. Can I suggest that as we go through these amendments, just to make sure that, not that I don't think staff's note-taking abilities are superb, but can we have council members maybe email the exact language just to confirm?
The staff would certainly appreciate that.
Okay. So I'll ask Councilmember Lim and Schaaf, just so there's no questions, if you would email Ms. Rogers and Ms. Hoffman and Danae at the same time. And with that said, I'm going to go ahead and then I'll go ahead and ask, as read and as it will be captured by, if there's any objections to this amendment. If so, please raise your hand or speak now. Okay, I'm not noting any objections, so the amendment is approved. So we will go back to a discussion on the motion that's in front of us, which is that the 2021 legislative principles and policy statements be adopted with the two amendments that have been approved tonight. Is there any further discussion on that? And I'll go ahead and ask the clerk to call the roll on this one. Ms. Rogers? Okay. Okay.
Anderson,
Yes.
Castriata,
Yes.
Broom,
Yes.
Jaworski,
Yes.
Law Evans,
Yes.
Lim,
Yes.
Lindstedt,
Yes.
Shaft.
Yes.
It passes as amended. The legislative priorities pass unanimously. So we will, so Danae, when are they expected to be back in session?
A great question, Mayor. February 16th.
And then they'll start full time on February 16th?
That's the plan right now. I will say, just like everything, it could change in a moment's notice, but that is the plan right now.
Okay, and so that would, could I apply then, that means that, and we think over the Saturday, the legislature would be done in June?
Yeah, it typically runs January to May, and so with the month delay, I think everything will just shift back. But there hasn't been clear direction on that, so that's an anticipation of it happening.
Okay, thank you very much. So we'll move on now to the Broomfield Urban Renewal Authority. We have one item for the Broomfield Urban Renewal Authority's consideration this evening, which includes 2 resolutions authorizing amendments to the borough bylaws and acceptance of 2 appointments. The meeting of the Broomfield Urban Renewal Authority is called to order. I'll ask the clerk to call the roll.
Anderson,
Here.
Castriata,
Here.
Broom,
Here.
Tinkle, Jaworski,
Here.
Law Evans,
Here.
Slim,
Here.
Lindstedt,
Here.
Shaft,
Yep, here.
Tessier.
It passes unanimously. We have a quorum. We have a quorum. A quorum is present for the Urban Renewal Authority. We have a copy of the agenda memorandum, which I'll ask staff to summarize.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. We certainly appreciate the brevity and speed with which we are moving this evening. John Hall and Carl Front will walk us through this next item. There are several modifications to urban renewal authorities that will impact council, our structure and decision making. John and Carl are going to walk us through both of those items. John?
Thank you, Ms. Hoffman, and thank you and good evening, Mr. Chair and members of the Authority Board. Tonight, we're requesting your action on 2 resolutions which would amend the bylaws of the Urban Renewal Authority Board, create 2 additional board seats, and appoint 2 members to the board. We have a short 4-slide presentation after which we're happy to answer any questions. Next slide, please. On January 5th, we came before you in study session to provide an overview and background on development financing mechanisms. You'll recall that one of the tools is tax increment financing, or TIF, which is associated with urban renewal plan implementation. At that time, we referenced House Bill 1348 passage by the legislature in 2015 that reformed urban renewal authorities. Specifically, it required that for any urban renewal district created or significantly modified after January 1st of 2016, the 2 new members be added to the authority board, specifically 1 representative each from impacted school districts and special districts. Because Broomfield has not created a new urban renewal area or implemented a modification since 2017, we have previously not had to implement the requirements of House Bill 1348. Next slide, please. As the baseline project moves forward, they will be proposing both a new urban renewal plan and a significant modification to the existing North Park urban renewal plan. These proposed plan changes will trigger the need to add 2 new commissioners to the board, a representative of the school district and a representative of the special district. These new commissioners will have full voting rights and will be eligible to participate in all authority business. Next slide, please. I'd now like to turn the presentation over to Carl Front, Senior Attorney, to discuss the necessary amendments to the bylaws and acceptance of appointments to the new authority seats. Carl?
Thank you, John. Good evening, Mr. Chair and members of the authority. Proposed Resolution 2021-31-UR authorizes an update to the Urban Renewal Authority's bylaws. The current bylaws were adopted in 1988 and do not appear to have been updated since their adoption. The draft bylaws included in your agenda memorandum this evening do a number of things. First, they formally update the authority's Board of Commissioners to include the representatives from the school district and the special district in compliance with House Bill 1348. Second, they update the time and location of the meetings to be consistent with current practices. They also recognize the roles of the city and county manager as executive director and the city and county attorney as general counsel, and they conform the authority's rules and procedures to those that have been adopted by city council. Proposed Resolution 2021-32-UR accepts the appointment of Laura Mitchell as the school district representative and Robert Nielsen as the special district representative on the authority's Board of Commissioners. Ms. Mitchell is an elected official with the Adams 12 five-star school Board of Education and a Broomfield resident. Mr. Nielsen is an elected official with North Metro Fire and Rescue District Board and a Broomfield resident. Pursuant to House Bill 1348, the impacted school districts and impacted special districts are authorized to appoint representatives of their choosing as commissioners to the authority. Proposed Resolution 2021-32-UR formally accepts these appointments this evening. And then lastly, I just want to touch base with you on what these requested actions are going to look like going forward. First and foremost, the next time you meet as the Urban Renewal Authority, it's going to look a little different since there will be two new members, and it isn't just City Council acting as a board. Looking at the proposed agendas, the next anticipated meeting of the Urban Renewal is on April 13th. And so between now and then, staff will be working on a plan for what that's going to look like. First and foremost, the priority will be to keep the meeting as close to what you're used to, but there will be a few necessary tweaks. One of those tweaks is going to be that as you convene as the Urban Renewal Authority, since there are two additional members, you'll need to approve minutes from the previous board meeting, since the regular city council minutes don't have those additional members voting on them. And then another likely change would be a suggested short break prior to convening as the Urban Renewal Authority to allow those members time to join the meeting, whether that be virtually or in person. And then other than that, staff will be conducting onboarding with the two additional representatives to go over what the Urban Renewal Authority does, what their expected role and time commitment is, and the logistics of what the meetings will look like. So going forward, staff will work closely with the mayor and the mayor pro tem in establishing how that fits in the agenda, if any different than how it's currently done. And we've got a number of weeks here to work that out. So that concludes the staff presentation, and we are happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Front. We'll go to public comments. If there's anyone who would like to be heard, please press star 3. State your first and last name and neighborhood for the record. I'm not noticing anybody in the queue, so we'll go questions from the authority are next. Are there any comments or questions from authority members? So let's go ahead and go through the 2 resolutions for the authority. First is the authority's consideration of proposed resolution number 2021-31-UR. Will the clerk please read proposed resolution number 2021-31-UR by title?
Resolution number 2021-31-UR, authorizing and approving an amendment to the bylaws of the Broomfield Urban Renewal Authority, BURA, to confirm to H.B.15-1348 and make other general updates.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that resolution number 2021-31-UR be adopted.
Councilmember Schaaf, or Board Member Schaaf.
Thank you, Chair.
Authority
So
member.
moved. I mean, second.
So is there any discussion? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Castriota,
Yes.
Broom,
Yes.
Jezierski,
Yes.
Law Evans,
Yes.
Lim,
Yes.
Lindstedt,
Yes.
Schaaf,
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
It passes unanimously. So let's go to the authority's consideration of the second proposed resolution number 2021-32. Will the clerk please read proposed resolution number 2021-32-UR by title?
Resolution 2021-32-UR, accepting the appointment of Laura Mitchell as the school district representative and Robert Nielsen as the special district representative on the Broomfield Urban Renewal Authority Board of Commissioners.
Authority member Schaaf.
Thank you, Chair. I move that resolution number 2021-32-UR be adopted.
Authority member Castriota.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Broom,
Yes.
Jezierski,
Yes.
Law Evans,
Yes.
Lim,
Yes.
Lindstedt,
Yes.
Schaaf,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Castriota.
Yes.
It passes unanimously. Welcome aboard our 2 board members. And I guess going back to the very beginning of being mayor, I understand the need for it. The special districts, the school districts, urban renewal is a big deal to Broomfield, but it's also a big deal to these. So it'll be interesting to see how this unfolds. I'm excited to see this happening. So there being no further business before the Broomfield Urban Renewal Authority, the meeting is adjourned. There is no business before the Arista Local Improvement District Board of Directors, and there are no special reports or requests for future action. That concludes the items on this evening's agenda. Is there any other business to come before the council? I am going to make a comment. I should have made it earlier that I will be given the State of the City report tomorrow. With the Chamber of Commerce. I think council members should have gotten the connection information this evening. I'm not sure it was fully vetted for everybody. For those in the public, I'm pretty sure you can get connection information or learn how to get by going to the Broomfield Chamber, website. But I will give my view, based on on behalf of council of the city where we've been this year and where we're headed in 2021. So I wanted to make that announcement. There being no further business, the business meeting is adjourned. Let's go ahead and take 10 minutes because it'll be our break. And let's, so you have a separate connection information that you got this afternoon. So go to the second, link, and let's come back at 7:40. Thank you, everybody. Good meeting.
The Access Live event is in